Good afternoon for you, depending in which part of the world you are. Thank you to attend to this new webinar session from BIAS. Today we will talk about calculation, and well, I hope this is, of course, useful for you and for your project. Just to inform you, the previous sessions are already available at our portal. So you can log into the portal and download the previous sessions if you had any opportunity to look at it, or of course if you would like to have a review of the sessions. Okay, let's start the session with an introduction from this PowerPoint. Later I will go to show some examples directly into the system. We will start with some general information or information regarding the pre-calculation and well, all the calculation functionality, what we should take care about. We will talk, the second topic will be calculation template or calculation schema, as we call it normally in BIAS, what is the structure of the cost you can include into the items you will produce. We will see how the calculation at item master data works, and of course I will show some examples regarding the batch calculation. Is the way to calculate several costs for several items in only one process. The pre-calculation process that is normally oriented to an engineer to order process. I will show you one example, and of course we will talk about post-calculation at the end of the process. Once we create one item, when we complete one work order, then we will do an analysis of the cost of this work order. In general, the function overview is, of course, this all calculation part affect what we call product calculation. One part is, at the moment we create one item, then we can have a look at what is the theoretical cost of the item. This is what we call calculation at the time we are creating the item. Okay. The other process is we can calculate the theoretical cost of many different items only in one process, and this is what we call a batch calculation. And then I will show you one example, and of course how to set up this batch calculation and why this batch calculation, why and where this batch calculation is useful. Pre-calculation, as I mentioned, it is normally related with the business process. I will show you one example from engineer to order. Of course, we start this process from the sales department at the time of one quotation and so on. I will show you the example. And later, the post-calculation, as I mentioned it in the previous slide, this is once we complete the work order, then to calculate or to analyze the cost of the work order. We can do it in a single way. This means let's calculate, or let's have a look at the cost of one work order, or in a batch way. Batch means I would like to evaluate the cost of several work orders, and we of course provide some filters and selections to show, for example, the cost analysis of several work orders related with one project, or I would like to calculate the cost for all the different work orders I did for one specific item. So at the end then we can have a look at what was the real situation, but also compare it with the budget or with the theoretical cost. Okay, let's start with the first topic we will talk. It's the calculation schema. Okay, calculation schema at the end is a cost template. We can relate this template with the items. Let me jump to the system and I will show you. First, let's have a look at the item master data. Very quick. This is one example of one item. We have one tab. We call it calculation, and here is where we see all the information about the cost of the item. You can see here there is a field, calculation schema. In this field, the schema is selected. Okay, so now let's have a look as the first topic to the calculation schema. Give me just 1 second. I would like to be sure that the sound is correct.
Unmuted.
Andre, the sound is going well?
Yeah, for me it's okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Muted.
Okay, I'm coming back. Then we have one topic, okay, in the menu. We call it calculation schema. And then we can have, of course, different calculation templates or calculation schema. Okay, as example, normally most of the companies use only one template. In this template, I will show you the content. But other companies could have one template, of course, for example, for a different item groups. Okay, this is the case in some customers we have that use a different template considering the item group. So at the moment you install BIAS, you will have one predefined or one default calculation schema. An important recommendation is never delete it. Always, once you would like to set up your own calculation schema or the calculation schema for your customer, then copy this and create a new one. The way to do it is, this is, for example, the standard one we provide. Just click in copy, enter a new ID. This is, for example, a test. And then you will have a completely new calculation schema based on the first one. So later you can start to modify, delete, or whatever you want, but you will not, let's say, modify the first one, because create one calculation schema from scratch is not very easy sometimes. Okay, so okay, let's have a look at one I have in fact modified. Okay, let's go to the second tab. Basically, the most important value here is to automatically calculate, that is market, and here you can see all the different different elements, cost elements you can consider, or cost objects is the correct word, you can consider in the structure. Okay, at the end, when you create one item, the cost of the item will be, of course, the materials you will use. Those are the materials are included in the bill of material. Also, the different operations are included in the routing. But additional, you can create some different elements. Like, for example, we would like to include 3% of additional cost regarding sales and administration. Okay, but also you can include many other lines, and then to relate it with the item master data. So once you create and once you produce your item, you also can choose which cost of this structure would you like to use, for example, to create your good receipt, or well, this is one example. If we have a look at one of them, for example, material cost by bill of material, this one here, what we are doing in an automatic way, in fact, at the moment you select the search in automatic, later you will have a list of different elements are created by default. So then the system automatically will summarize all the cost of the different materials and put it in one line. Later we will see what is the result, of course, of this pre-calculation. Other examples, of course, there are external processing. If there are any external process in the structure, then you can sum all the costs of the different external processes in your work order. Concept is the same. You click in searches in automatic and then to select different elements. Okay, but of course you also can directly select other values. You can select the picture you would like to use for doing inside the structure, colors, and so on. The way to say if I would like to use this object in my structure is to mark or disable this default value. If this is not marked, then this line will not appear in the cost structure of your item. We will see an example. More things you can do here is, for example, I included one additional line. We call it labor. And this labor, as you can see, the reference is not an automatic one. I included one reference we call cost element, because in BIAS we can create some cost elements and relate it with the different resources. I will show you in one resource. And the different cost elements I have created in this system, for example, are those three, and I related one cost element, we call it labor, with this line in my calculation schema. What is behind? If we have a look at resources, let me go to this resource we call assembly. Resources, remember, we saw it in the session for master data. The resources is the place, the work center, or the place where the different operations will be done. And we have one tab in the resource master data that is cost. Okay, you can inform to the system, or you can set up different costs depending on the different activities you will do. For example, you need to prepare one machine. Okay, you need, imagine this is a, I don't know, a plastic machine, and you need to invest time to put some to put a mold or to use a tool and so on. So then you can tell to the system, okay, this is the cost to use this machine during 1 hour if I am doing a setup job. This is, for example, machine and labor, but you also can evaluate the cost of the personnel in a separate way. So this is the reason we have an additional line here. And see that I can relate the different elements with the cost element. In this case, for example, labor, the one I created. What is the target here? Once I do the combination, first I create a cost element. Later I relate the cost element with my resource. And in my calculation schema, I also include one line regarding this labor. What will happen? We can tell to the system, if we receive one time received from one worker in the factory, we would like to create in SAP a journal entry with the specific cost of, for example, the salary of this work. So then we can provide a solution to the customer to create different journal entries depending on the activity they are doing. Okay, so then this is the combination in this case with the resource, a cost element, and the calculation schema. If we have a look at the cost elements, okay, I have it. I'm always using the kit. It's very easy. Then, for example, I have a group of cost elements, and inside my group of cost elements, I have 3 cost elements. Let's have a look at labor. If I go to labor, then you can see, okay, what happened at the time I create a time receipt, okay, in the system. Okay, I would like to put that value in this account. Of course, you should define this depending on the customer requirements in financial. For example, I relate the cost of the worker to a payroll expense, direct labor cost account. Okay, this is only one example. So then keep this in your mind, and you can relate also the different lines of the calculation schema with cost elements or with direct values as cost of materials and so on. Consider also that, of course, you can include, let's have a look at the sales and administration, and that is different than others I previously showed. In this case, I would like to charge to the cost of the goods, okay, a 3% or a 4%, depending if it is marginal cost or full cost. What will happen is, depending on the cost of the goods, then the system will increase the cost of the item I will produce in a 3% or 4%, and then we can evaluate, of course, the material at the time to do the good receipt, considering this purchase or others are defined in the structure, okay? Once we jump to the item master data and we have a look at the pre-calculation in one item, we will have a better understanding on how is this structure useful, okay? Also, what you can see here that I'm not only considering different cost or expenses, I'm also able to include, for example, a profit margin, and then to calculate net sales price, also discount, and so on. Behind this, I will show you that there is a batch process that can update the business one price list and so on. So then we can also calculate the theoretical sales price of one item and fill this value in a business one price list. Okay, I will come back to that later. So let's come back here to our presentation. The next topic is, okay, let's have a look about this structure and how this structure is related with the item master data. And also we'll see what additional information regarding the calculation or the cost of the theoretical cost of my items we can provide in this calculation tab, okay, as also historical information and so on. So let's close here and let's come back to the item example and come back to the calculation tab. If we go to this calculation tab, we will see first I related my item with one of the templates I created, in this case to the production. We have information about last purchase price, last evaluated price, average price. This information is coming from the standard way to calculate in Business One, okay? If we talk about one purchase item, you know, in Business One, the last purchase price is calculated at the time you do an invoice in the purchase process, okay? In the case of one item you produce, of course, the last purchase price, because you will not purchase it, but then it is like the last production price, okay? Average price is also coming, of course, from Business One. At the right side, we have also some additional tabs, but we can see, okay, here we can see some details about considering the cost of the item, which part is coming from material, which part is coming later considering also the production cost and so on. Before going in detail to all those different tabs and what additional information we have here, if we have a look first, if we click in the price list, then of course we will have a look at the different prices this item have in the different Business One price list, okay? If we have a look at the calculation button, then the system will tell me, okay, how would you like to consider or to see the cost, the theoretical cost of this item? By default, you will use the template or the calculation schema you have defined for your item, in this case production, but also I can change it. I would like to consider the cost by a specific lot size. For example, normally I would like to produce this item in a batches or in of 50 items or something like that. So then we can have a look at this. If we have setup times in operations, you know, this setup time will be the same no matter if you produce one item or if you produce 100 items. So then the cost, of course, will be different. How would you like to consider the materials? Because, of course, in the bill of material of this production item, we can select different costs for the purchase item, or for the items are in the bill of material. When we set item valuation method, that is by default the option, we will have a look at what is the option we have in Business One, if it is FIFO or if it is average price and so on. But we can say, no, I would like to use last purchase price or directly, or have a look at the cost of the items in the bill of materials in one specific price list, okay? So let's go directly to clicking Start, and then we'll see the result. In this screen, as you can see, there is the structure of the item. The structure means the bill of material, but also the different operation. In this case, I also have a sub-assembly, and if we have a look at the content here, we see, for example, I need 3 units, and also 3.3 units of this burner pipe item. These have one cost, and then of course the cost of the materials, considering the quantity and the unit cost, is 69, for example. So here we start to see, okay, what is the theoretical cost of this item? Why this item have a cost of 500 and something euros, for example? Well, because there are some materials, each material have a cost. Also, there are some operations. Those operations have some defined times, and those times have a cost, and the cost is related with the resource. So, for example, if I need to invest 1 hour in assembly, and the assembly operation will be done in the resource 1201, if the cost of use this resource during 1 hour is 100 euros, then the cost for 1 euro for 1 hour of assembly will be 100. Okay, so this is the way we calculate the operation cost. Okay, so but later then you can see that the different elements from the calculation schema are also included in the whole structure of the item. Okay, so then, for example, we can have a look. Material cost by bill of material. Okay, this is 196. So at the end, we are just zooming all the materials of the different, all the materials in the bill of material. If there is any external operation defined, then we will put the cost here as a summary. Material extras, there is nothing. And then direct material cost is the sum of all the different material costs. Okay. Later, for example, I wanted to include an indirect material cost of more or less 15% or 14.9. So this is an additional cost I will include. But also I have some operation cost. Okay, this is labor and machine cost is coming from the cost of the different operations I have here. Also, I included a percent of 3%. Of course, this is I defined those percents in the calculation schema. And also labor here is in blank, but I will show you one example in one work order. Depending on the time a worker input in one operation, then we will have one separated cost, and also we will be able to have a look at the journal entry in business one. This is one example, but you can include elements like tools, cost of the tools you use in the operation, or you can send the cost of the machine to one account, and labor is the example I did, and so on. So you have a lot of different possibilities. Okay. So then later we sum all the different costs, sales and administration additional cost. So then I take this cost of sales normally as the theoretical cost to produce my item, considering all the additional costs I included in the schema. But if you have a look here, then I included a 20% of profit margin, and then I calculated a net sales price. Later I will show you how to set up a process to export values from this structure to theoretical calculation price of BIAS, but also to fill the business one price list. For example, we have customers that find a great value here because they are normally producing, depending on the industry, of course, they are producing with a small margin. Okay, so if there is any change in the cost of the bill of materials, then they should take care about the price they are considering for the sales, because otherwise they can start to lose money or of course to sell with a very lower margin. So then they export this value every day, for example, to a price list in Business One, and they create an alarm in Business One when this price list we are filling is different than the sales price the commercial people manage. So then, oh, take care because the item A, you are selling this below the margin or below a 5% of margin or something like that. Okay, later I can show you an example. Coming back from this place, of course, here you see all the theoretical cost of the item, but you can also do some things. Okay, what happens if I would like to see the cost by 100? So then you put the quantity here, and then you see all the values. Or I would like to see it by the lot size, or what is the lot size if 1, and so on and so on. Okay, so this is only one place where you can have a look at the theoretical structure of your item, and then why, for example, this calculation price is 596. It is, of course, because this calculation we saw before. So let's have a look at the information we have also here. Details, yeah, of course you can have a look at the details of the different, you don't need to go directly to calculation to see the last values here. We have some graphic to show you, okay, what is the more or less the cost of the items in different calculation if you modify the bill of material, or if the cost of the materials are changing, of course the theoretical cost is also changing. So here you can see some graphic information. And in this screen, then you can see all the different calculations you did for this item historically. Okay, I will show you again what is the way to calculate this value automatically and put it in a Business One price list, but also to fill this value. Something important regarding this value calculation price is most of the companies normally use to calculate or to evaluate the cost of the item they will produce at the moment they create a good receipt. Once they complete the production, then of course, you know, in BIAS we create a good receipt using DI API, so a good receipt in Business One is created. What is the value for this good receipt? So most of the companies are using this as a standard price. Okay, this is calculation price, because we calculate this price, for example, every day or every week. So this is the way I would like to evaluate my item. How to consider it in your system? You should go to, there are some settings you should consider in the configuration wizard. If we go to production, and later we go to valuation of our items, we have different ways, of course, to evaluate the items we produce. So this is what is the cost we will apply to the good received in Business One at the moment we complete our item. When we put as manual transfer, we are telling to the system, okay, we would like to use one specific cost from one price list. In this case, it's calculation price. Calculation price is this field I showed before in the item master data, okay, in the calculation tab. Or of course, you can use other prices in Business One, the last purchase price or the last evaluated price or a specific price list in Business One. Of course, you can also say to the system, no, I would like to use other type of valuation for my items, like, for example, actual cost. Okay, if actual cost means no matter what is the theoretical cost of the item you will like to produce, the cost you would like to consider at the moment you create a good receipt is the cost of the materials you really use it, and the cost of the times the people in the factory really input in the system. So if it is planned to invest 30 minutes in one operation, but the worker invests 1 hour, then of course the cost of the item will be higher. But if you select this, for example, actual cost to evaluate your items, then we will consider this additional cost from the worker. Okay, but anyway, what I wanted to show you here is just that the more, let's say, a normal way, and most of the companies are using, is this calculation price, because in that way they can manage a theoretical calculated price for the good receipts. Okay, so okay, this is regarding this screen and how it works. Okay, in the item master data. Batch calculation, this will complement the information I mentioned regarding the item master data, and we'll understand how to calculate those costs of those different items in a massive way. Okay, so let's come back here to the system. Let's close this screen, and we have an option, we call it batch calculation. Okay, and we can create different scenarios. Why we can create different scenarios? Basically because you can set up BIAS to calculate the cost of the item in an automatic way. This means you can set up the BIAS server to calculate the batch calculation during Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for example, at 2 o'clock during the afternoon. This is one example. Also, I can show you one example. So once we open the scenario, okay, we need to create one scenario. We put the name. We can create a valuation. This means this will really affect the values of the item, prices list, and so on, according to what we set up. But also we can create a simulation. Simulation means nothing will happen, but we will have a look at what are the theoretical costs, but we will not affect any additional price list or the item master data and so on. So then we can say to the system, I would like to calculate the cost of all my items from, for example, from the first item to the last one, but also I can filter by item groups, or I can use the item properties in Business One, the 64 item properties. In this case, I created a scenario for a small range. We will see how it works. At the moment we mark here in this value, then we say, okay, we need to calculate the cost of the production, of course, and the next one, enter calculated price. Calculation price is the price you calculated. Okay, let's put it in the item master data in the calculated price field. but which part of the cost of our item structure we should consider. If you have a look at the next field, it say includes prices for. If we open here, we have all the different subtotals or total cost in the item cost structure, and we can say, okay, I would like to evaluate, or I would like to calculate the cost of the goods, or the net sales price, or others, or just material cost, or just material and production, and include it in the price calculation, in the calculation price field in the item master data. But because you are able to do this calculation, let's do an additional step. Let's include values in a price list in Business One. If you have a look here, then we have all the prices list in Business One, and we also are able to say to the system, yeah, but I would like to send a different price list, or sorry, a different value to the price list in Business One. For example, I would like to calculate the cost, but the cost, I would like to fill only the cost information in the item master data, but to the calculation to the price list in Business One, I would like to send the net sales price marginal cost. Okay, this is one of the different elements we have in the structure. We can say, I would like to calculate all the cost considering one specific schema, or if it is in blank, like in this case, then the system will use, of course, the related schema in each item. So depending on the relationship we did in the item, then we will do it on one time. So once we have this, for example, if I click in calculate, you will see that the system is doing some transaction, and here we have an additional tab that is result. Okay, here in result, then we have the different calculations, batch calculations we have done in the past. Okay, this is the last one. We did it right now, and in the range of items I selected, I have only two production items, and then here we can see all the marginal cost, for example, for the materials, marginal cost or full cost, production cost, marginal or full cost. So all the different costs I have for my item, then I will include it here. For example, remember I wanted to include the cost of the sales, marginal cost, in the item structure. But for the Business One price list, I believe I selected the net marginal cost. So we can also have a look to see. If I click in details, then we can have a look at the structure. Sorry, this structure is an old one and was in German. So then we can have a look at the different costs according to what we calculated for each of the items. Okay, so okay, this is how it works with the batch calculation. If we have a look at the prices list in Business One, for example, the one I affected was the price list 01, and here I have my housing unit. For example, this price is coming from the calculation, but also this one from the other item because I marked those two items. So what happens if I purchase today an item that is in the bill of material, and this item have an expensive price, or the price is different, then if we run the batch calculation, of course the theoretical prices and the theoretical cost will change. So this is a very powerful tool to keep the control of all the cost in the company, the cost of the items we should produce, okay, regarding at least the theoretical information. If we come back to the item master data, let's come back to our specific item. We will have a look again at the calculation tab. Okay, this is the price. Again, it's the same because the item didn't change, and we can have a look also from here. We can jump to the calculation. Okay, this is the scenario we built before, and the scenario we use it for do the last calculation. We have here the last calculation information and so on. If we have a look at all results, then I will have here all the different information regarding the cost of my items, in this case this one, and so on. So then this is again, this is a nice tool to keep the cost updated for the theoretical cost of the items already updated. Okay, the way I told you, it is possible to run this process. I did it in a manual way. I came to the batch calculation and click in calculate, the system do it, but you can also do it from the server. If I look for from the server, the VEA server, okay, this is the VEA server. We will go a little bit deep in this in other sessions. But just to give you an example, then this is like a tool to run different processes in an automatic way, okay? And you can schedule exactly when to do it. If I go to planned activities, then for example, I can calculate the MRP in an automatic way. I believe I mentioned this in the MRP session. Then for example, you can run the MRP all the mornings and so on. Calculate the batch pre-calculation. Okay, this is a training database, and we provide some examples and some script to set up some automatic task. If I have a look directly into the task, okay, this is okay. Computes all the batch pre-calculations were enabled for an automatic computation. Okay, this is the smallest script we need to consider, and we define what are the conditions. For example, we would like to run this process all the Mondays, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on, but not Saturday, for example, and Sunday. Okay, server should not work on weekend also. So and also a range time. Okay, from 2 o'clock in the morning to 12, and we can also define a loop, so we can, for example, run this process once a day or 2 a day. So here you have the possibilities to manage your automatic task. Okay. So okay, this is just one example regarding the batch pre-calculation process. Okay. Okay, let's come back now to the before go to the pre-calculation. I would like to show you one example of a couple of things. I mentioned it here with one example. For example, here I have a couple of work orders, and I will show you. In this work order, I have no many transactions. This is a normal work order with some items I should issue and some operations. If you have a look here, there is a time receipt done by Carlos Herrero. I did it before. But also there is a document created. This means there is a financial document, a journal entry in Business One created because we set up for this resource a cost element. Remember, it was labor cost, and labor cost was related with the time received of the workers, and I selected one specific account in the financial part to register the cost of the labor cost. So then we can see, we can have a look at the what was here. If we have a look, for example, let me open it from the financial part. For example, the journal entry, this should be the last one, for example. Then you can see that I'm using the account I defined for the payrolls, okay, for payroll expense, direct labor cost. This is because this worker have a salary, for example, of 10 euros by hour, and this worker input 1 hour in one operation. So then we are splitting the cost of the worker in this part. If we have a look at the later, we will have a look at the theoretical cost of one work order once we complete a work order. Then you can see also what is the analysis of cost, considering also this labor cost and of course other different elements. Okay. So okay, let's come back here, and then we'll start to talk about pre-calculation. Remember, as I mentioned it at the beginning, the pre-calculation process is normally related with an engineer-to-order process. We will find a very useful functionality for those companies who need to produce something specific for a customer. Normally in the sales process, the customer demands some modifications at the item. So previously, to create a specific or a defined quotation, there is a previous engineer process to modify the structure of the item, to include accessories according to what the customer demands, and so on. I will show you Now one example. We should, of course, consider that to calculate and to have a good calculation of the cost of this item, for example, we will provide to one customer, we need to have cost of the items, okay? We need to have, of course, the items defined in the bill of materials and of course, the quantities, okay? With this combination, of course, the system will calculate what is the cost of the different materials are involved. Similar is regarding the operations. You need to have resources with the rates defined, okay, in the item master, in the resource master data in its machine. You will need to put what is the cost to use this machine during 1 hour, for example. In routing, this means in the item master data, in the routing tab, then you will have the different operations, and of course in the operations you need to define the times, because the cost of the operation will come from the combination of the times defined in the operation and the cost of this time. The cost of this time is defined in the resources, okay? So this is, of course, important. It looks very basic, but at the end this is very important to have a good cost calculation, okay? This screen here, we show this, in fact, in one of the first sessions. This is a business process for an engineer to order. Basically, what I would like to show you here is the process starts normally with the sales quotation. Okay, you will build a sales quotation for your customer considering different changes in the item, and at the moment you create the sales quotation, you will start to use the pre-calculation functionality. We will call to the pre-calculation to do these specific modifications. Later we will send the quotation to the customer, and the customer will say, okay, perfect, this is what I need, so here is the sales order, and we will produce after this sales order the specific configuration of the items the customer demanded, okay? And then this is the example I will show you now. Let's jump to the system, and let's go to, for example, no, I will start, sorry, from a sales quotation, okay? We have, I will create a new quotation, for example, for microchips, and the item I will use is the housing unit, okay? I need 5 items, for example. This is, let's say, the price for the item according to the price list, okay? I have one item with one bill of material and so on, currently defined, okay? So this is just the a normal sales quotation. What we provide here and what is additional from VIAS is, if I click in this line with the right button, then I have, of course, I can jump to have a look at the inventory history of the item, or I can jump to the item master data of this item in VIAS, that we call it extended item master data, or we can create a new calculation. This is the engineer process where we will specify what exactly is the structure of the item according to the customer requirements, okay? We, of course, start to a predefined item, that is this housing unit, but let's do some modifications and see how the system works with this. First, the system will create a pre-calculation, and we will save this pre-calculation. This is like a specific configuration of the item for this customer. Let's create, for example, version 1, document is 28. The system have a pre-calculations list. Here is the information of the customer, because this is coming from this quotation. We can relate the pre-calculation to one project. We can create different projects in Business One, as you know, and then you can create or relate different pre-calculations with those projects. Okay. Also, you can include more information. My item is a little bit poor, so there is not all the information. Okay, but you can put more things. Also, you can put additional text. Okay, even this is a defined item. So, okay, also if I jump to the valuation tab, you can see here that I have, I will use the calculation schema of production, the one I showed you, to evaluate the cost of this item. I can include other values, or I can say also to the system, what happens if my quotation is for 5 units, okay? So I would like to calculate the cost for those 5 units. But what happens if I need to do 50 units, or if I need to do 100 units? Here then we will have the opportunity to see what is the scale, what is happening with the prices depending on the lot size for production. Why? Because if we have set top times, again, if you produce, if you have set top times and you produce one only item, of course, this will not be distributed, so this item will be very expensive. But if you produce 50 or 100, then the setup time, that always is the same, will be distributed. So then you will have the opportunity to have a look at the evolution of the cost, considering the size, the lot size of production. So, okay, let's click here. In this case, I also have variants, for example, defined for the item. So then I will select the variant A. Okay, and that's it. This is the structure of the item, exactly the same screen we saw from the item master data. But here then we can start to play. Okay, for example, customer called me and they told me, okay, please sell me the housing unit, but I don't need the gas nozzle sub-assembly, okay? So can you sell me this without it? Yeah, of course we can do it. So then I will delete this entry. Also, for example, this item, this item kilogram here, I will not include it. The contact housing, because the type of the item, then I need to change the quantity in the bill of material. Here you can see you can also modify some information regarding the item master data for this specific item, but for this specific pre-calculation. So at the end, the pre-calculation functionality is like a open place, a free place where you can modify the structure with a in a very easy way, and with not many how to say, with many different possibilities in a free way. Okay, so then, for example, this is okay. I also would like to delete this operation. We will not do this operation. Of course, I'm just deleting. It's the easy way. You can include all other items. You can include new operations. You can, for example, change the times of the operations. Not because this new configuration we are doing for this customer, then we need to invest more time for create each item. So then, for example, 25 minutes in this case. Whatever we do with this pre-calculation, of course, will not affect the item master data. This is, we are taking all the information from item master data, then we open this pre-calculation and we have the same structure, but now it's in a different place. It's in another place in the database, so then we can play with this and delete and to modify according to what the customer demanding. Okay. Also, if you have a look here, there is a word lot size 5. If I click here, then it changes to 50 or to 100, depending on what I defined at the beginning. So then we will see the different prices depending on the quantity I produce. In this case, if you have a look, I'm looking at the prices for 1 unit, but what is the unit price if I produce 5? What is the unit price if I produce 50? And what is the unit price if I produce 100? If I would like to have to see, no, I would like to see the view by 100. Okay, then you click here, and then you have the total cost for your quotation, considering a lot size of 100 and so on. So then, of course, you can play a little with this. So let's update here. And once we update, you see there is we record a value regarding the calculation. This is the number of the pre-calculation is the 39. Is already recorded in the sales quotation. Okay, so that's it. Of course, we can create a formatted search in Business One and catch the specific price we calculated in the calculation 39, for example. Then this is the normal way to complete the process of the sales. This price will be updated because this formatted search, considering the calculation you did, and then you send to your customer. Okay. So, okay, you sent the item, you sent the quotation to your customer. I mean, your customer sent it to the customer, and the customer say, okay, this is perfect, this is exactly what we need. And then we go to create this sales order. This is the sales order after the confirmation from the customer. Of course, I can change the quantity or I can change order, but if we have a look here, again, the calculation 39 is already recorded and related with the sales order. Every time from the sales order or also from the sales quotation, if I click in the, wait a second, business one, if I click here and with the right button I can open the calculation 39, okay? So, okay, let's have a look at what exactly was the customer requested. Okay, this is the structure we created from the sales quotation. Again, we can modify this again, okay? Because, for example, the customer say, the quotation you sent me is okay, but please delete also or include one additional accessory or whatever it is, or you reduce your margin or you modify the structure. So here we have, let's put one date, and then here we have our sales order with this engineered process because we did the specific customization, okay? So once we have the sales order created, the next step is to create, of course, the work order. If I click here with the right button of the mouse, then I have the opportunity to create a work order from the sales order. Of course, not from the quotation, but yes, I can do it from the sales order. We can do it from in this way, or we can do it also from MRP or from the other option to create work orders, that is work order from sales order in the production menu. If I click again, then you see that I have an additional line, work order 78, sorry, that is created for this item. If I open it, I will open directly from the sales order the work orders in BEAS from the document of business one, and this is the structure of the work order. Have a look at, there is no any gas nozzle subassembly is one of the items I deleted. I deleted other item that was a kilogram item or something like that. I also deleted the operation was in the position 30. So then we are creating a specific work order for the specific requirement from this customer that is coming from an engineer process, okay? So this is why pre-calculation is useful. This is the normal process you will consider for pre-calculation, and then of course this is the result. Now the next step, of course, is you run the MRP and you have a look at what you need to purchase, and then you proceed to create your item. Okay. Okay, this is regarding this pre-calculation process, considering one example from engineer to order business process. Now let's have a look at what we call post-calculation or cost analysis. Okay, we have a couple of possibilities here. It is, of course, to evaluate what is the cost of one single work order. We finished the production of one item, and then we would like to have a look at the actual cost. What happened really in the factory? Or we can do a batch cost analysis. This means I would like to have a look at the cost of all the different work orders I related with one project, or a simple range of work orders, and so on. So let's have a look in the system. Let's come back here. The single way to do a costing analysis is, we have all the work orders. At the moment you open the work order screen, of course you only see the active work order, but you can have a look at all the historical information. For example, I would like to see from the work order 40 to the 99 or 999. So here are all the different work orders with the red symbol. That means it is closed. And let's have a look at one, for example, with enough information. Let me have a look at this. Okay, this work order, that is the 44, you can see that I have time receipts in this operation, but I also have the good issues created from during the process, so those items I issued. If I have a look here, always I will be able to jump to the good issue, the good receipt in business one, and so on. So, okay, this is the work order I would like to evaluate. If I click here, just selecting this work order, okay, currently with the mouse, then I have a button here that is product costing analysis. If I click there, then the system will tell me, okay, we will have a look at the cost of the document number 44. Okay, it's related with the one sales order, not the work order. It's a mistake. I can inside one work order I can have different positions. This means I can produce different items. So then I can evaluate only one part of the work order or all the position. That is the case. Okay. I would like to do it in an accumulated way. For example, I would like to evaluate the prices of the items from entry. This means from the document at the end, the good issue and the good receipt we created in business one, or we would like to evaluate the cost of the items, not at really happened, but also considering prices in business one and so on. So then you can also play with this. Production schema, for example, or if you do not put anything, then the system will will select the calculation schema of the item as is defined in item master data. Okay, valuation of the prices and so on. So then we click in Start, and we will see the actual cost of the work order. In this report here, but I can also display all or not, some specific part. Then we can see, for example, okay, I issued 33 units of the burner pipe. This was the cost, and 33 per 21, this is the material cost for this work order. Same for this other material and so on. If I need to issue, for example, in this case I need to issue in the contact housing unit, it was, I issue 11. If it was planned to issue 10, but I issue 15, of course, this is the screen where we see what was the real situation of the work order in the factory. If we issued more materials than planned, we will see it here. And the specific times, for example, the workers included here. For example, James Bond included 120 minutes, and this is the cost for the James Bond time received for 120 minutes, considering the cost of the machine, the cost of his salary, and so on. Okay, for inspection, and then later we will see, okay, this is all the cost of the bill of material, the direct material cost, and this is all the cost. But if we have a look here, also I can change the cost to marginal cost or to full cost from this button here. There is a second tab. If you see here, there is planned and actual calculation. If I jump to this second tab, then we of course have a huge lot of information here, but what I would like to show you is we have now the opportunity to compare the actual cost, that is what really happened in the factory, with the planned one. What planned one means what was defined in the bill of material and the routing. So then we can see if there is any difference between what we wanted to have and what really happened. So for example, for each element, for quantity, for cost, for material, for times, we have one column that is actual and plan, actual and plan. So we can have a look at the specific difference in each part. For example, we can start from here, cost of the sales. Cost of the sale is actual was 10,278 euros, but the planned cost for this production order was 11,800. Okay. Why the difference? Then we can start to go up. Then we see, for example, an important one here, that is the labor and machine cost. Okay, there is actual was 55, and the planned cost for the machine and labor cost was 1,280. So if we go a little bit high, then we will see, okay, where exactly is the difference? When in assembly we planned to invest, for example, 603 minutes. This is what was defined in the routing, but what really happened in the factory was that James Bond, because it's very faster, then invested only 120 minutes to do this job. Okay, same happened in inspection. Okay, again it's James Bond, so did it very fast. 670 minutes were planned, and he did it only in 33. Of course, the cost of the production is very slow. Because he did it in a short term and not the same as planned. So then, of course, here we see what is the difference in terms of cost: 654 euros instead of 200, or €1 instead of 122. So if we have a look at the material cost by bill of material, there is a small difference of 140 something items, a little bit more. Then we can have a look at where are the different on cost, and the different in cost is inside the subassembly, and we can see that is, for example, in this item, the wire 15 green, it's supposed to cost 528, but the cost of the material at the moment the issue was completed was 355. So we have in this report the opportunity to compare for one work order what was the result, of course in the first tab, what was the actual result, but later in this tab we can compare the actual cost with the planned one according to what was defined in the item master data. Okay, this is one way to do it. This is the single way. This is you select one work order or you select one position. It is not mandatory to wait until the work order is completed. In fact, for example, in the work order 78, that was the example I showed you regarding the labor cost. The only cost is here is the cost of no, not in this one, sorry. In this one, the only cost in this work order is the Carlos Herrero time received. If I select the work order and click in the product costing analysis, then I will see the current situation. So at the moment the work order starts to have information. If you input, if you issue materials or if there is any time received, then you will have information. Okay, currently there are some different costs here defined. Okay, so that's it. This was regarding the single way to calculate or to analyze the cost. Let's refresh this screen, and now I will show you how to do it in a batch way. Okay, post calculation, click, and then I have, for example, also different scenarios. Okay, again I can calculate this in an automatic way. And for this, for each scenario, I can define different information, different filters, and so on. For example, in this one, I would like to calculate the cost of different work orders from the work order 45 to the work order 49. Okay, it could be also possible that you say, okay, only finished work orders or all, or I would like to, between this range from the work order 45 to the 49, I would like to see only those are related with one specific project, okay? Or just those work orders are related with one specific item or item group or item properties and so on, okay? So once you define these different variables for the calculation, then you click in calculate. The system will find in the range those work orders, and will do the calculation for all the work orders. In this case are 4 or 5 different work order. Is completed now, and then the next is, let's go to the result tab. If we go to the result tab, we will have here a summary of all the different batch post calculation we have done. For example, I have a couple of them from February, from May, and from today, but also from today again. Okay, and we will see, okay, this is the positions are inside the work order 45, the work order 47, 46, 48, and 49. Okay, and we will see what is the cost of each part of the work order. For example, then we will see, okay, what is the quantity was planned, the quantity, the actual quantity, times were planned, costs are planned, and for each part, materials planned, material actual, cost of the materials, full cost, marginal cost, and so on. So you have here, not in a graphic way, like in the single calculation or single post calculation, but you have all the information you need regarding the cost of your different production items for those, for the filter we did or the selection we did at the moment we defined it, the post calculation scenario. Of course, you can export this information to Excel, and then of course you can imagine what else you can do with all this information. Okay, this information is here. This information is stored in the database because all the calculations, no matter if you did it in February, then you have all the different costs calculated on February for a range of work orders, for example. Okay, so this is of course a very useful tool to, for example, now we are expanding some functionality to go deeper into project manufacturing, and then you can calculate what is the cost of one project when this project is to create many different items, or also is related with one installation or others. Then you can mix the different costs and create one specific report for your customer and show you. Also, you have the detail button, so then you will see what is the details of the calculation here. Okay, so okay, now you saw how is possible to create a single calculation, post calculation, and how is possible to calculate a batch calculation. Okay, basically this is what we wanted to explain you today, and as usual, then I will open the time for questions. Please raise your hand, and then I will allow the microphones to answer questions. There is a button to raise the hand, so if there is anybody who have a question, you can do it now.
Yes, from Alex we had a hand raised.
Yeah, I see Alex here. It is. Hi, Alex.
Hi. Hi, Carlos. I have a question related to the calculating schema. We have also all the material related costs, but also we have some indirect costs. So in the moment when we are creating a production order, so we issue all the labor and material costs to the WIP, this will be an amount, but when we'll receive from production that finished goods, actually it will be a different cost. It will be a cost increase because it will include also the indirect cost. There is any possibility to direct those costs, like sales cost, indirect production cost, indirect manufacturing cost, to a different accounts, or it will be combined when you close the production order as a WIP variance account?
Yeah, you can.
Will be.
Okay, correct. You can. Of course, we also can work and consider WIP accounts. So it is normal that, for example, at the first operation, if you issue some materials, of course, there is some values will be recorded in the WIP accounts, because then you will balance the WIP account at the moment you finish the work order and then to adjust. Okay. So
okay.
because in the calculation schema you have the opportunity to define different elements like material cost or indirect cost, or you can create your own schema. I only show you one example from, of course, the template we provide, but you can build your own one. And then you can set up, using cost elements or other elements, you can set up the specific account you would like to affect at the moment one transaction happen. Of course, this is mandatory to have a permanent inventory, otherwise material transaction will not generate a journal entry. But then you can split those costs according to the rules you would like to manage.
So it's possible also for those indirect costs to put them directly
to split those costs, and to put it in a different account. Yeah, it is
account. Possible. Yes. Oh, okay. Another question of mine, it's in the pre-calculation. If I have in my routing, instead of having a machine, I have a group of machine with different calculation, different costs, and so on. How will that one work?
Yes, you mean, you have different resources. Each resource have a...
Yes, but I'm not planning from the beginning. You know, my bill of material is generic. I can make that item on 3 different machines, but 3 different machines cost me differently. And I can use 1 person to that one, 2 person on that one. The other one is cost me because it's very old and so on. So when I relate this one to my bill of material, because I don't know until APS is starting and I don't have capacity in my machine number 1, but I have it in my machine number 5. So the actual cost, I know how much it would be, but how it will work in the pre-calculation.
Yeah,
I
in the
have to do an average.
Yeah, correct. In the pre-calculation, you are able only to select one resource, but also this resource could be a group, because normally
Yes.
this happens in companies that have, for example, 10 machines for do the same job. Typically in plastic, you don't know if you would do one job in the injection plant one, machine one, or if you will do it in the injection machine 2 or 7. Okay, but yes, at the end you need to select one, or you can select the group with an average price. Because the way to build the theoretical cost is, of course, to include one resource that will be related with the operation. And then if you have a look in this screen, this is the cost tab of my resource.
Yes.
And this is, of course, theoretical cost. In fact, I have, if you have a look here, I say evaluate personal cost separately. But I need to put one theoretical cost. But of course, if the job is done by Carlos Herrero, the cost will be different than if the job is done by the supervisor, for example, of the factory. But you cannot, know this before. So then you can work with an average cost or something like that to build this scenario. Okay. So then, of course, you can have imagine you plan to do the assembly job with some specific people in the factory with the salary normally close to $10 or 10 euros, okay? But if that day the worker is not available and the job was done by the supervisor, then when you see when you compare the actual cost at the time you do the post-calculation analysis or the costing analysis, you will see, okay, the planet was that is coming from pre-calculation was, the operation had to cost 10 euros, but it cost 15 euros because the job was done by the supervisor. Okay, so yeah, you need to consider average or theoretical information in the resources, only one, yes, or the group directly. You can also do it, and that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I have only one question. When I have a batch, so let's suppose I have a chemical industry where they have 3-4 tanks with different capacities and so on. When I'm doing the calculation, the setup time it's only at the beginning when I'm doing it, but depending on each tank I'm using, one it has 10,000 liters, one has 5,000 liters and so on. So my setup time it's a little bit different for each tank that I'm using, and the setup time and the setup time it will be only once when I produce it 10,000 or 5,000 and so on. So in my batch calculation, the pre-calculation, how do I get this one?
Yeah, basically because at the moment you create, you define in the routing. Let me show you one example in the in the item structure. In my item, for example, here I have some different operations, okay, assembly, inspection, and so on. Of course, those operations are related with one specific resource. Could be one specific resource or could be one group, okay. In any case, if I open the operation, here is where I define what is the specific setup time when I use for example, this resource. Also, it is possible to change. Normally, you define this. This is a fixed value, no matter the resource you are using. But I'm not sure if you see a small yellow C at the left side of some of the fields.
Yeah.
This is because in BIAS we provide the possibility to include some formulas to affect different values. Those values that with this C, depending on different factors. For example, if I plan to do this operation in this resource, and if I do this operation in this resource, then my setup time will be this. But if I change it and then I create the work order, what we can do is at the time you create the work order, calculate, because you can include a formula and so on, calculate a different setup time and so on. So here then you have other dynamic possibilities to deal with this type of situations.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. I believe there is more questions. Gilberto. Hello, Gilberto.
Hello. What would you recommend for a customer that needs all the functionality, for example, the functionality of variants of production for, I don't know, research and development, but they do not have all the times it takes to them to make a work order. They do not have all the costs, and they only have their raw material costs.
Yeah, you mean exactly. For example, this is a I don't know, new customer that is didn't stop to calculate exactly the times they invest in different operations, and they would like to start now. You can work, of course, with without it's not mandatory to consider times defined in the operations. Of course, the advantage to have predefined times in the operation is that you can schedule, you can plan, you can, for example, you will create a work order, and then if you know that you need 1 day for one operation, and you have 3 similar operations, then you need 3 days to produce this item. This is only possible if you have predefined times in the operation. If this is not a problem for the customer at the beginning, then okay. Later, once they create some work orders, then they can, for example, run a post calculation in a batch way, see what is the results of 3, 4, or 5 different work orders for this specific item, and then say, okay, normally in the first operation we invested, or the workers invested 15 minutes, 17 minutes, 20 minutes, and so on, and then you can take an average and put this value in the routing, okay? But the advantage to have, of course, information at the beginning is you can plan. Otherwise, if you have no any information, the system will tell you that you have an infinitive capacity to produce. But regarding the system, you have no problem. The only problem is you have less possibilities to plan, to schedule your production, no more.
Okay. Have you ever had a case like this?
Yes, absolutely. We had a customer, a couple of them, no more than a couple of them, that they are starting to, the business is going well, the business is growing. They were not really planning in the factory, they were just producing and so on. Most of them already do not know the specific cost of the item, so they know more or less what are the bill of material quantities, not more. So then the way to calculate or to start to fill the system is just creating some operations to give the opportunity to the workers to input time, and then once this happens, then they run the post calculation, as I mentioned it, and they see an average, and they start to fill the system with theoretical information. And then 6 months later, 1 year later, then they have the possibility to schedule, because they have theoretical information, so they can calculate the cycle time for MRP, or also they can run APS to really schedule the work. Yeah, it's happened sometimes.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome. Okay, is there any other question? No questions? Questions are for free, so please do not hesitate to ask. Okay, if there is no any question, then I will stop the session here. I really would like to thank you for come to this session today.